All right, guys, girls, what is up? GC Live pre-Christmas edition of the show. Hope y'all are having a great holiday week so far. Merry Christmas if we forget to tell you later on in the show. But going to knock out some things here. Chris Clark here, Wes Mitchell, our probably final episode of GC Live, at least for maybe this week, unless just something crazy happens. And it's been I would say, interesting offseason so far for South Carolina. We're going to dive into Sterling Lucas's exit. We're going to talk transfer portal, the guys that have already said they're leaving, maybe give a few little notes and context on maybe why some of those guys are leaving, and then, of course, dive into some other things going on in South Carolina athletics as well. But first, let me tell you about our guy, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans, ClintHammond.com, 803-422-6797, NMLS number 71597. Like we always tell you, if you're in the market for a home, Clint is your guy. If you're not in the market for a home right now, but you think you might be down the road, maybe you want to get a head start on what that may look like for you and your family, give Clint a shout. If you want to get into investing into homes, give Clint a shout. Whatever it is having to do with that subject, Clint is going to help you through every single step of the way. Again, 803-422-6797. Hit up Clint today.
And we'll do the same, but for vehicles, Wes. So if you're thinking about a new or used vehicle, looking to trade in, need something new to you, Ferry Chevrolet, ferrychevrolet.com. That's FAIREY or 803-937-4531. Still led by a fourth-generation dealer in Joseph Ferry. They've been around, guys, since 1926, so clearly doing something right. They've been in business about 100 years. Business started in St. Matthews, now conveniently located in Orangeburg, so conveniently off 26 between Columbia and Charleston. But as I said, you can also check out their online inventory, what they've got going on with financing. If you're looking for a new Chevy truck, new Chevy vehicle, give them a chance to earn your business. ferrychevrolet.com. You see them on Gamecock Central all the time. You hear about them here on GC Live. Just give them an opportunity to earn your business like they have for so many since 1926. Again, that's Ferry Chevrolet, 803-937-4531 or ferrychevrolet.com.
All right, guys. It had been a pretty positive, I would say, offseason for South Carolina so far. Obviously, the season didn't go the way the Gamecocks wanted. And Beamer even talked, hey, I'm going to miss all these guys that are on the team right now. You hate to kind of not be able to go through a bowl game, but Chris, seemed, I think, re-energized to get started on this offseason and talking about closing out the recruiting class in positive fashion. You get a flip from Julian Walker, hang on to Landon Duckworth, even though Lane Kiffin was coming in trying to flip him, go out, replace some coaches. You hire Kendall Briles. You make that official. You kind of have, we've talked about it, an identity on offense. You kind of know what to expect in terms of the approach on that side of the ball as well. And then we're all getting ready for transfer portal. We've talked about it. This is the pre-portal season right now. Guys are announcing they're leaving. If you're in a recruiting department, dude, you better be evaluating everybody that's saying they're going in the portal. You better be evaluating everybody that's not saying they're in the portal in case they do go in the portal. Everything going well until we get this news on Friday. And we reported over on Gamecock Central, Sterling Lucas expected to leave South Carolina for a position on the LSU staff. There's been different reporting since then. Some maybe haven't gone as strong as that. I know people are waiting for an official announcement from LSU to make it completely official. I think there's some semantics maybe involved here too, Chris, as there always are when it comes to coaching changes. Saw something similar with the Briles hire, the semantics of how far along is it? Is it a done deal? Is it not a done deal? I'll put it like this, and this even goes back to what we were told on Friday. Like when you say expected to in the business, that's kind of become like the catch-all for this is not officially official yet. The contract has not been approved by like a board of trustees or anything like that. But it would take a complete change in direction for it not to happen. So Lucas has basically told South Carolina he's leaving. The expectation on the South Carolina end is that they are replacing a coach at this point, and I would dare say they have already started that process in Columbia of making that happen. Now, people have asked, well, why hasn't LSU made an announcement yet? Well, I can tell you, I did check on that part today. LSU has not announced any of their coaching hires yet. The expectation in LSU is that they are going to wait until after the bowl game. That current staff, their staff from 2025, the ones that are left, are coaching LSU in the bowl game. They're going to complete that. I want to say that's the 27th or 28th of December. They will go through that, and then the expectation is that they will announce their staff, most of those guys, all at one time. They're kind of filling out the entirety of that staff. And so is it officially official on the LSU side? As of right now, you would have to say no. But are all signs right now that South Carolina has a coach to replace? You would say yes.
Yeah, and I'd add two more things to that, Wes. I don't have much more to add because I obviously agree with you. You know, you and I try to be pretty freaking careful about how we report things. There have been instances where we pretty much know something is happening, and you maybe just don't have that final bit of confirmation where you can go super strong on it. And you got to kind of dial back exactly how you're saying it. You know, you and I have we have to have a little bit of a higher standard than just throwing a rumor out there and saying something's happening, right? When we were told, what we were told on Friday was this was happening, you know, and there was some confusion out there because some of the other reports said Sterling Lucas was a target. We put out there he's expected to be the hire because that's what we had. That's what we still have. You laid out exactly why. If you need, you know, even one more piece of evidence, if for some reason you're still skeptical, you know, Anthony Sweeney, a 2027 edge from the DMV area, got an offer from LSU and tagged Sterling Lucas in it on Twitter, right? So this is happening. South Carolina's pushing forward with working on finding a replacement. Sterling, are there still some, you know, I think you already answered the question as to, well, why has it not been announced? There's been a lot of reported hires for LSU. We know in a lot of ways what that staff's going to look like. None of them have been officially, except for Lane Kiffin, right, have been officially announced yet. And so that's kind of the why. One interesting angle, Wes, is nobody that I've talked to knows for sure which exact position on the defensive front Sterling Lucas is coaching. Is he going there to coach edges because Kevin Peoples, their veteran defensive line coach there, is listed as the edges coach right now? Are they moving him? Are they going to have two D-line coaches who handle the whole line? Is Sterling Lucas, you know, coaching the defensive tackles? I've heard both, talking to people who are pretty knowledgeable, and nobody seems to know for sure. So kind of interesting, right? Doesn't really matter in the South Carolina scheme of things in terms of this actually being done, right? That is what is happening here. Sterling Lucas is departing the staff to go to Baton Rouge, and Shane Beamer will be looking for another assistant this offseason.
Yeah, and just to address one more thing, Tay says it sort of sucks not being officially official since it's hard to actually hire his replacement until he's officially gone. Trying to think of how to say this, Tay. I think as far as South Carolina is concerned, as of Friday, it was official. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you inform your current school you're leaving, and the expectation is that your current school is that you're leaving, then from their end, it is pretty much official. So, you know, Carolina will have no reservations about, you know, moving forward and doing what they need to do to fill that position. And I would imagine that's one of those things. I mean, here's the thing, dude. And I love Sterling Lucas, and I think he's been the funny thing about Sterling Lucas is that for the absolute Shane Beamer haters out there, you know, and again, I'm not saying you can't be ticked off about 4-8 because you should be ticked off about 4-8. I'm talking about just the absolute, like, the Shane Beamer can do nothing right, people. Sterling Lucas would have been a hire that people would be dinging Beamer for. You know what I'm saying? An NFL guy, hadn't recruited, and essentially had been sorry, I'm getting distracted. What does that mean, Philly fan? Why do you love this guy? He is abandoning us. So Philly fan says, here we go with the political stuff. Why do you love this guy? He is abandoning us. I'm telling you what it was like to cover Sterling Lucas and the job he did at South Carolina is what I'm saying. In other words, I'm not going to sugarcoat just because he's leaving and be like, oh, he didn't really do that good of a job. That's just not true. He did it. I think he did a fantastic job at South Carolina. Now, I don't think anybody is irreplaceable. I just don't. But was Sterling Luke good to people at Carolina? Was he good to the media? Did he recruit well? Did he recruit hard? Did he coach well? I absolutely think he did a good job here. So, not going to change that because the guy dipped out. Getting back to what I was trying to say, Chris, is that, and I've completely lost my train of thought. Where was I, Chris? Where was I going with that?
No, you were talking about like the job that he did. You were talking about Shane Beamer getting dinged for things.
Oh yeah, okay, all right.
So,
yeah. Lucas was not a big name hire.
Yes,
when it happened.
That's right.
It was, hey, this is a assistant NFL coach, not an NFL assistant, like an assistant D-line coach, assistant line. He had time in the NFL, but not the way you put it in one of your pieces, Chris, not running his own room, essentially. So
anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere. So he comes in, he gets to run his own room. That I remember there was even confusion about that. He was not hired as a linebackers coach. He was hired to coach the edges and defensive ends, essentially. And so, if you want to ding Beamer and say, well, he can't hire well for assistants, Sterling Lucas, a guy people are ticked off is now leaving, would have been firmly in the category of not big name coach when he was hired, and has proved just because you have or don't have a recruiting track record resume doesn't mean that he is not able to come in and recruit. So hit the ground running and recruited right off the bat. You know what I'm saying? So I think for him, it just kind of proves to you, though, there are different ways you can fill a staff is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I'd say, Philly fan 39-42 to your last, say he is not loyal to us and he's jumping. I mean, we're not going to just say whatever people tell us to say in the comments because we'd be saying all sorts of stuff that's back and forth. We're trying to do our best job to like give our own opinion on it and kind of break down and analyze things. If you want us to say yes, he is leaving for another job, right? And generally the coaching industry is one that's not rife with loyalty, right? Like, because Sterling Lucas has had other opportunities. Wes, I think it's been, every year, every offseason. I mean, he got here in 2022 was his first year. He was hired early that year to replace Mike Peterson. And, the funny thing is a lot of people are saying, bring back Mike Peterson. Mike Peterson would fall into the category if he wasn't loyal because he left, to go back to his alma mater, right, in Florida. But he's had other opportunities at the NFL and college level, and so far has not pulled the trigger on one of those jobs. So, I know, look, if you're ticked off because you're like, well, Beamer gave him his first job and he's from Orangeburg and he's doing fine here and he should be this or that. Yeah, sure. But, people are individuals and they've got their own opportunities and motivations for taking other jobs. It's not my job to really sit here and say a guy should or shouldn't stay, right? We just kind of break it down and analyze it as we see it. Position coaches move all the time. Lucas could have dipped out previous to this. And so regardless of what we all think of it, that is what is happening here. So, it is, it's a loss for South Carolina because I think Lucas was well liked by the players. I think he did a good job in terms of development. I think he did a good job in terms of recruiting. You look at some of the bigger, higher profile recruitments that he was in on, Dylan Stewart, he was obviously key on. He was involved with the Nick Harbor recruitment and some others. You always felt, Wes, that look, you don't get a prize for finishing second or third in a recruitment, but you look at it and Lucas would have South Carolina in the mix for guys where you look and go, man, typically South Carolina wouldn't be in the mix for a guy like that, and he could get you in the mix, right? So there were a few of those, to be quite honest with you, where you're like, man, if they could have closed out this guy or that guy, and that's not just in the edge room, that's at a bunch of different spots over the last few years at South Carolina. So it's a loss from that standpoint. And so now, Wes, you kind of look at what he did here, and now you turn the page to what's next, right? So our expectation is that Shane Beamer makes a straight replacement hire, right? That's kind of what we've gathered. We don't think there's going to be, like restructuring on the defensive side of the ball. It seems like, just from what we've gathered so far, you're going to see a new edge defensive end coach come in. And then, frankly, the next part of that is going to be player retention, which was already a key critical component of this entire offseason. Yes, Dylan Stewart, but there's other guys in that room too. How quickly can you get a hire done? What does it mean for Dylan Stewart and the rest of that room?
Well, I think here's the thing too, man. You used to get no credit for finishing second or third in recruiting, but in the portal era, you do get a little credit for finishing second or third as well, because if a guy hits the portal later on, maybe
you might have a shot.
Yeah, hey, what's up, coach? And I think here's the thing. So, dude, when all this broke, I think your natural inclination is you're kind of hesitant, or at least you were in the former way college football was structured, to like even talk about a guy possibly transferring elsewhere that is not in the portal in Dylan Stewart, has not announced he's going in the portal, has not actually personally give any inclination or even hint that he's going in the portal at this point. But then you're like, that's just where we are. And a guy like him is so high profile that if his position coach leaves for another SEC job, and the word on the, I would say, transfer portal streets is that LSU has their eyes on Dylan Stewart. If you hire this guy, you're expecting him to at least have some involvement in possibly bringing him with you. And that's just where we are, man. That's just where college football is. So with that being said, there is no final decision right now. I think the thing to know about Dylan Stewart is that when this first happened, and even the rumor, they're kind of rumor mill, Gamecock burner, kind of just on Friday, hey, Sterling Lucas is leaving. He's going to LSU, and so is Dylan Stewart. And I think that's where you have to stick up the not so fast, my friend, that from everything we've heard, for one, before all this happened, Stewart was all but officially coming back. Like, he was coming back. Like, it was trending very, very, very heavily towards that. Was not official yet, but basically was leaning heavily towards coming back. And then does this maybe throw a little wrench into that? Of course, it changes the dynamic of it. This is someone who was a big reason he chose South Carolina in the first place, right? Now, if you are South Carolina, you've been doing everything you can to keep Dylan Stewart in Columbia in the first place. You've been ramping that up in the time since then. And then, Chris, here's the thing. I really don't think we've ever heard, maybe you have, I haven't ever heard anything about Dylan like looking for a reason to leave either. Like, he's one of these guys that's been so high profile. People have been trying to like ship him out in the rumor mill on social media since the moment he burst onto the scene against ODU in game 1. So, from everything we hear, Dylan has been happy at South Carolina. He's been taken care of at South Carolina. He's been well compensated at South Carolina. His family has been happy. Is a big part of that his relationship with Sterling Lucas? Yes, it is. Are there other relationships at South Carolina that he covets and are reporting to him? Yes, as well. He has 1 year left. Is it worth it to go to an LSU where you know like one guy who may or may not even be your position coach? When you come back to South Carolina, get paid very well, you're in a scheme, you like Clayton White a lot, you're going to be a top 10 pick. It could go either way, honestly. My gut feel on the situation, and there are ebbs and flows of this stuff, my gut feel is that he's going to be back in Columbia. But I don't think we're at a point of that being final by any means yet.
Yeah, I think there's kind of just to be frank, Wes, there's kind of a pressure on us to say, is he going to stay or is he going to go? And the answer just has to be, I don't know yet. I think when you first heard this, the natural reaction is to do the hashtag he gone thing, like, well, because what do we know? We do know that LSU is hiring Sterling Lucas. We do know they're very close. We do know that LSU would love to have Dylan Stewart. Like, we know all that, confirmed. But what you brought up, Wes, all those other kind of sub points to this whole thing, those are absolutely true too. So you're right. People have been, Dylan Stewart. I would even go beyond when he burst onto the scene his freshman year and go before that, when he announced his commitment to South Carolina, which in typical Dylan fashion came without a whole lot of fanfare. Just kind of put a graphic up on social. You had Ohio State fans and who probably Clemson fans who are, he'll be gone after a year. Didn't happen. Won't necessarily happen this time. Is it something that in the beginning and maybe even now was a realistic possibility and something that you absolutely have to monitor as to whether or not it could happen? Yeah, for sure. For sure. Probably still is. But is there also a very realistic chance that number 6 is going to stay put in Columbia? Yeah, there's that chance too. There's a lot of people that he's comfortable with at South Carolina other than just Sterling Lucas. They have a great relationship, and I'm not discounting it, not discounting the job that Lucas did during the recruiting process or the coach-player relationship that they have now. But there are others on this roster, players, Julian Walker, who's coming in to play in this class, the strength staff, assistant coaches, like you mentioned, whether it's support staffer, Clayton White, other guys he works with on a daily basis in this program, and Shane Beamer. And all those things are still in place too. So, yeah, something we're still monitoring. I dare say, Wes, anybody who says they know for sure doesn't actually know, because I don't think anybody knows 100% for sure right now. Have there been some positive indicators for South Carolina in the past day or two? Yes. But nowadays, man, as we know, in the year 2025 heading into 2026, it's not done until it's done, one way or another. So I'm sure we'll be continuing to track this one until there is, some type of resolution here.
Yeah, no doubt. And like I said in the top, man, this is just where college athletics is right now. And got to track that stuff and just see where it goes. All right, let's dive in, dude, to some of the portal exits to this point. I would say, man, for the most part, it's kind of been many of the guys that you would expect or that the writing was on the wall. Dare I say some certified healthy transfers for South Carolina to this point. I mean, you look at today, Air Nolan. I think that was a situation where Air came in. The expectation was last year you were getting someone to come in, probably be the backup to Lenora Sellers, kind of be their Robbie Ashford role. Unlike Robbie, though, Air, a younger guy, has a bunch of eligibility left. Sellers, the plan was going to have a great year. He was going to be a top 10 pick. He was going to leave, and then Air would be in a perfect spot to kind of take over after him, I think. And so for them, or for Air, I think it just none of those things we're talking about really worked out that way. Sellers is expected back at this point. You know, Doty was the backup, then Cutter Woods. We hear all this super positive things about him and his future in the program. And it just really did not play out the way you would have looked for it if you were looking at it from Aaron Nolan's perspective. And so he hits the portal today. According to Pete Nakos, he's going to anyway. Not really a shock, I don't think, really to anybody in this case.
Yeah, it's not. And, it is, I think what you pointed out about Cutter Woods is definitely worth pointing out. Cutter, frankly, man, I think he had more buzz. I mean, both those guys arrived at the same time. And, you look towards the end of the season, who was put in the game earlier, it was Cutter Woods, which I think says something. And you frankly heard more buzz about Cutter Woods. You also have Landon Duckworth coming in. Hard to say that factored in one way or another because it's a guy who's literally not even on campus yet, right? But for Aaron Nolan, now he'll be going to his third school. Probably wants to go somewhere where he's got better prospects of playing. Makes total sense. You see this all the time with quarterbacks. You're seeing it more and more in the transfer portal era where, you've got guys that are going to, it's not super uncommon to look up and say, that quarterback's been to 3 schools. Like that happens more at that particular position. So not surprising at all. One thing I'm wondering, Wes, though, is that, 16 back, Cutter Woods, Landon Duckworth coming in as a true freshman. 3 quarterbacks. No disrespect to walk-ons. Little light in the quarterback room from a scholarship standpoint, right? So does South Carolina, you're not going to be looking for a starter in the transfer portal. We know that. Do you look for some depth, though? Because you've got Cutter coming back. He'll be in year 2. Doesn't have much game experience. Doesn't really have anything that you could call meaningful game experience. You'll have Landon Duckworth, who's certainly a talented kid. Also will not have any game experience. So are you going to be looking at this situation going, hey, maybe if we can find the right fit, and the right fit would be somebody that's okay with not being the starter and isn't, Frank, got to say it, is not going to command a pretty penny in the portal to come be a backup in your program, maybe for just a year. Can you find that? And if you can, does it make sense to bring in a guy like that? I think they'll be maybe a little bit nervous, the staff will, maybe about the quarterback depth behind Lenore Sellers, just in terms of not talent, but experience.
Was that some Jimmy Francis hate, Chris?
No hate on Jimmy.
Big number 25?
Yeah, no hate on Jimmy. No hate on Brandon Cunningham. No hate.
Okay.
Just,
respectfully.
Very respectfully.
Okay. Just making sure. I think that's tough, man. Like, I think you have to look at that. Like, look at adding via the portal at quarterback. Also, all right, so they were able, and these things change so quickly, man, in terms of what you can get done. They were able to do that with Robbie. And then you're like, all right, can you recreate that a second time? And you tried to do it with Air, and it was a little bit different because he was not as experienced as Robbie. And that, he didn't end up, let's say, frankly, it didn't work out because he didn't end up being the backup. Now you had an option in Luke. So, that he ended up being the guy there. It just didn't go as planned. So now I think you even have to think about, what about Cutter? If Cutter is your backup, if Cutter is your likely backup, are you able to go get a transfer portal guy to be third string? Probably not. Now are you able to get a portal guy to come in and compete for number 2? Potentially. Now you don't have the spring window anymore. We saw quarterbacks going to places and competing for number 1 spot or number 2 spot, and if they didn't get it in the spring last year, they were saying, "Well, I'm gonna transfer in the spring window." You don't have that anymore. So maybe. I think that's now Cutter. I will say this, dude. Cutter, by all indications, and I think it's Garnet Yardbird, a loyal chatter and listener here on the show, said Cutter works incredibly hard. Absolutely, he does. Cutter is not a guy who's going to get worried by you bringing in another guy into the quarterback room, I feel like. By all indications I've heard, if it's like, hey, we got to bring in some depth, we got to bring in another guy to compete for number 2, Cutter feels like the guy's going to be like, okay, sounds good. He gets it, is what I'm trying to say. However, I think that that's a tough dynamic there to try and do that. But I think you have to look at it and just see what's out there, see who's available, see who's willing to. Just like, I think there are certain positions where you're going, hey, they have to go get players at this spot. That's one where, we'll see how it plays out. Running back, you can't go into a season with 3 scholarship guys.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't. Offensive line, with especially with the guys they're losing to the portal, the guys that are losing potentially to graduation, like you really can't look at that position and say, maybe we'll add from the portal. They absolutely will add at running back, O-line, and defensive line. And I would say, especially now that Kilgore is definitely gone, you're looking at adding at safety / nickel as well.
Yeah, I think, I've said this a few times, Wes. I don't know the amount of spots on this team where you're not going to the portal for at least a player or some additional depth is very small, right? I think you could see maybe linebacker, right? Because again, it's December 22nd. There's time for more guys to make a decision. You know what? I'm hitting the portal. There's time during the portal window when it opens on January 2nd for a guy to say, you know what? I'm going in the portal. So all this has the caveat of, like, if the roster is stable from where it is sitting right here today, maybe you don't go get another linebacker, because even though Jaron Willis left, he was your 4th guy, a special teams guy. You signed a big recruiting class in the 2025 class. Maybe you just figure, hey, one of those guys is going to bump up. We got our top 3 guys back. Punter, if Mason Love's on your roster, probably feel pretty good about Mason Love. Quarterback, we laid out, you're not looking for a starter. Maybe you're looking for some depth. But, man, just about every other spot on this team, that South Carolina is either absolutely planning to take somebody or somebody's, or it's very possible, which goes to, I think, even that next one right there. Do we need a kicker? I think that's a spot that South Carolina's taken a hard look at to say, what are our options here?
Yeah. 100% Exa. With the right guys out there, I think you take a very hard look at adding a kicker. Even if Dylan Stewart is back, can you add to that room opposite of him? Even like I think they actually ended up doing a phenomenal job of replacing guys on the interior of the defensive line last year. Huge kind of question mark going into the year, right? Played pretty well there. And, now you kind of are in that same position again. You're going to have to replace some guys there. So you're going to have to go heavy there. You're going to have to go heavy, I think, at safety / nickel. O-line, Chris, I think just as important as like the numbers and the evaluations and the NIL and all that, can you get some guys on the O-line that are good fits for what Kendall Briles wants to do with this offense? I think is going to be a big part of that. And you're going to have to spend some money. You just are. But, I think they're obviously getting prepared to invest heavily on the offensive line moving forward.
Yep. Offensive line, I always feel weird when I say, it's an expensive position. Nowadays, Wes, they're all expensive out of the portal.
What's not?
What's not? But when you go to the line of scrimmage, I'll put it this way. I had a conversation with one of our members on the Insiders Forum this week. Right. What is an all-conference offensive lineman cost? And so, I asked some follow-ups. Well, okay, do you mean like all conference from an SEC team currently? Are they group of five or an FCS all conference type guy. What position, right? Is it center? Is it a left tackle? But generally, man, Wes, I mean, I think you'll agree with this. You could very easily, for an experienced, really good offensive lineman who's going in the portal who would be coveted, easily $500,000, $1 million. Like, you can get it up in those ranges very easily. And those guys are at a premium, the closer you get to the football on the lines of scrimmage. And that's D-line, that's edge, that's the offensive line. And so, when coming into this year, it was very much expected, or coming into this offseason, I should say, I think South Carolina was anticipating there would be some attrition because some of it, frankly, was going to be created during exit interviews of, hey, we probably need to move on here. We probably need to part ways. Troy Ball, probably not a guy you were counting on for that. Can you say you're shocked in 2025? Probably not. But you knew that there was going to be some attrition here. This is already a position on the offensive line, Wes, where, 4 or 5 guys going to be needed in the portal. And so that's 4 or 5 guys that you're going to have to invest in and that you're going to have to hit on, because for better or worse, you don't necessarily want to be in this position. You'd love to be in the position where you can say, let's go add a center from the portal, or let's go add a guard or a tackle from the portal. You're really in a position now where, yes, you still got some guys on this team that could help and develop under this new offensive staff. But just from a sheer numbers standpoint, you've got to add from the portal. And frankly, you've probably got to find some guys that can start next year too. And that'll require an investment.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Chris, let's tell everybody about some of our other friends. Of course, our friends at Game Time, gametime.co, the Game Time app. Obviously, football winding down, but lots of big games left in terms of college football playoff. Lots of big games left, man, in terms of professional football. And there's a local team that's might be making the playoffs for the first time in a long time up in Charlotte too, if that is something you're interested in. If you need tickets to sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, whatever it may be, our friends at Game Time have you covered, just like they did for me when I was going to the World Series, got a chance to go to Atlanta, go to the World Series, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Game Time was the app I use. It's the app you can use as well. Industry-shaking ticket coverage. They love fans because they are fans too. That's why they're committed to making your experience stress-free. They are very proud of the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Game Time ticket coverage includes lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss assurance, and on-time ticket delivery. Of course, like I've been telling you, go ahead and take the guesswork out of buying football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code ON3. ON3, that's ON3 for $20 off your first purchase, though terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code ON3 for $20 off.
All right, and let's tell everybody about our friends over at Palmetto Golf and Belts, palmettogolfing.com. That's where you can go to access the online shop. Brandon Cohn, amazing golf products, local company. He's got amazing stuff, golf head club covers. Goodness, I cannot spit that out, Wes. Custom needlepoint belts that are just as well made, if not better, and more affordable than a lot of the other retail options out there. Gloves, towels, tees. Got the palmetto tree design, the garnet for a little Gamecock flavor, the state of South Carolina blue as well. All sorts of golf products. So, man, it's December 22nd. If you're not on top of your Christmas gifts, you probably need to get on that. If you're looking something after Christmas as a, oops, sorry, I forgot you. Or if you just want to get something for yourself, if you're a golfer, you need a gift for the golfer in your life, Palmetto Golf and Belts at palmettogolfing.com. You can rest assured you're also buying from someone who is a South Carolina guy who listens to this show, who's on GamecockCentral.com, longtime South Carolina fan, Brandon Cohn. That's Palmetto Golf and Belts at palmettogolfing.com.
Yeah, maybe don't tell them that you forgot them. Just be like, I was waiting on it to be shipped or something like that.
It was custom made, which it is. So, yeah.
True. I don't know if we have to do this one, but I'm going to do it anyway because I like Andy. I got Andy Luedecke, My Perfect Franchise, myperfectfranchise.net. Like we keep telling you all year long for several years now. If you're ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, or looking for a side hustle while working your current job, or maybe you want to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy, Andy's going to help you out because he's a franchise consultant and franchise owner. He helps people find franchises that fit their skill set, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. Services are 100% free to you. He is here to help you if you have any questions about business ownership. Hit up our guy Andy today, 404-973-9901, or just head on over to myperfectfranchise.net, or you can email him, Andy, A-N-D-Y, at myperfectfranchise.net. If Andy was involved in college athletics, Chris, he would essentially be telling guys that were in the portal what programs would be excellent fits for them,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
But he's doing it with business ownership, essentially.
That's a good analogy. I like it.
There's already some guys that are saying they're entering the portal that I think people have been ready to connect the dots on with South Carolina. You know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of guys who are like, I remember that guy. You know? It's a bunch of them.
The guy I'm most intrigued by to this point would be, can you get in the game with CJ Baxter at Texas?
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
There's a connection, right?
Offered by Stan Drayton when he was at Texas, I think back in 2021. Baxter was in, I think, the 2023 recruiting class. So early offer. They know each other. Carolina needs a running back. Not saying it'll happen, but just saying.
It would make sense.
It would make sense. Very talented kid. Former number one back in the country.
The injuries, unfortunately, have kept him from hitting what is just immense, I would say, upside and ability and talent. Now, he is one of those guys, I think, whatever team takes a chance on him, if he is able to get back to 100% health and kind of back to his old self, could be incredibly rewarded by taking a little bit of a chance on him. Because I just, from what I've read, I don't know if he's quite, like he's been back, but I don't know if he's quite been back to what he was before to this point. But sometimes with running backs, it does take a little bit longer, I feel like, when there is a big injury for you to get back to that point, man. So we will see if that happens. Yardbird said, is Wendell Gregory coming back? I would not think so. I've not heard anything on. Kind of interesting, dude. Wendell hits the portal at Carolina. He is reportaling. Pup Howard reportaling from Florida.
Yep.
I know people are making the leap there. I don't see it happening with Wendell. Haven't heard really anything with Pup either. I mean, if he wants to come be a reserve guy in Columbia, maybe. I don't know.
No, there's a lot that, and I haven't heard him come up either. But it's all nowadays. It's always, what's the situation, what circumstances did the guys leave under, whether that's your school or the school they're coming from. How much can't hide from it anymore, Wes, or sugarcoat it or whatever. How much NIL money do they want? You don't want to get in the position of, and I'm not applying this to anyone specifically, to be clear, but oh, this guy wants all this money and you think he can be a backup. It's probably not happening, And I think a lot of times, guys hit the portal where you're like, wow, that was a big time name back in the day. And you look up and they haven't really done much at their school. It's like, we're not trying to win a portal star contest. You're trying to use the portal and bring in guys who can make you better, right?
Yeah, Austin Gardner says, what about our thoughts on Peyton Lewis from Tennessee? Yeah, I mean, that's a guy. Carolina was pretty heavily involved there. It'll be interesting to see what's the intersection between, hey, there's a kid in the portal, and I'm just talking in generally. What's the intersection between there was interest from that kid originally in South Carolina, there's a relationship with Stan Drayton, and they're good enough to come in and help this team? Will there be guys, once we see who all is in the portal, that fit all those intersections or not. You know what I'm saying? The more I watched Kendall Briles, and I've tried to go through and watch some of his stuff from Arkansas and from TCU, a little bit from his other stops as well. I think having that true number one back, that true just bell cow, that true stud, like any college offense, it makes a difference, man. It really does. So, is there a Rocket Sanders quality guy out there? Is there a kid that maybe has a relationship with Kendall Briles? You know, from just some connection.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yep, we'll see. I mean, that's definitely one that's, I think on one hand, Wesley, you look at running back, Carolina's got some guys on the roster where it's not barren with what you have on the roster, right? You've got some guys that have played football for you or played at other places where they have some experience and they've done some good things. Have they been to that level of what you're looking for bell cow status? No. But your numbers, you can't identify that's the guy. You don't have a guy coming back that just ran for 1,000 yards. You don't have that. And you also are very short on numbers, right? So if you're looking at a position in the portal to go, I mean, again, they're going to have to invest in a lot of positions, but a big time running back is one where, it's something as a Gamecock fan that you'd probably really, really like to see.
Yeah, for sure. Will says, feel like we're pretty full at linebacker unless it's a surefire star out there. Yeah, I kind of agree with that, man. Assuming they, keep a J.R. Johnson, keep a Justin Okoronkwo, Sean Murphy, I thought had a good finish to the year. You have kind of that 3-man rotation. Does the fourth guy in that rotation come from all those true freshmen you brought in last year? I think that would be your hope. So I'm with you, man. That's the thing. It used to be the thing you wanted to do was stack as much talent as possible, right? And just stockpile talent. Now, stockpiling talent does you no good. It's more about can I fill all my needs with the best possible players, and while somehow creating some depth along the way under my sort of cap, essentially, which the cap, we know the rev share cap is official. Then you have the unofficial, not really capped NIL. Really, your cap is how much money can you shove into the above board, above rev share. How much do you also have to spend, essentially?
Yep.
There. So,
yes. Yep.
By the time you listen to this show later on, if you're on the podcast, this may already be out there. As Trey says, Beamer did tweet a new welcome home for the class of 2027. Has not been made official yet, at least that I've seen, Chris. Doing a quick glance. I don't think the kid has announced yet. So not sure on that one, Trey. We'll be efforting that here soon. But like I said, if you're listening on the podcast version, you maybe will know by the time we do this show.
Yep. We'll see. We don't know right now.
You got anything else, man?
No, I think we're good, man. Big listenership today, viewership.
Appreciate I was a little bit shocked.
Y'all must not be working today, Just fine. You should take some time off during the holidays.
Well, I kind of thought people would be off their computers today.
They're on their phone though. They're probably sitting in line off Harbison, or in traffic. Yeah.
Come hang out with us on Gamecock Central, by the way. An excellent time to subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, get in the free trial or not free trial, the $1 trial, I should say, will get you in the door. And then, of course, hang out with us, man. I promise you will like the content if you're not already on there. For those who are already on there, man, we really appreciate you. For everybody that has been on the show all year long, watching, clicking, commenting. Scarlet Yardbird says Merry Christmas. Hope everybody has a really, really awesome Christmas, and like, review, subscribe. That would be the best Christmas present that they could give us, Chris.
Yep. Hope everybody has a great Christmas. Take some time off. Be with your family. Enjoy yourself. And we'll talk to you after Christmas, I suppose.
For sure. All right, for Chris, I'm Wes. Y'all have a great one. Appreciate y'all again. And we'll talk to you after the holiday.